So you're very, very welcome. It's lovely to have you join me live. And just bear with me because there's people coming and going there. So I'll just be keeping an eye on the waiting room and letting them in as they come. And then others will have it on the replay. So you're very, very welcome. So I suppose just what are these classes about this week? And really what they're about is trying to capture what's gone on for people over the last 12 months. And if you've seen any of the Facebook lives I was doing, I've just noticed that people have come up with, have captured so much. And I just find over the last couple of weeks, people seem to be losing some of what they captured. And I seem to be reminding people, I remember you said this and you said this, and we're all kind of getting caught back into getting going again. And I suppose we're out of the traps and we're dying to get going. So we're losing some of the decisions and the kind of realizations, I suppose, over the last 12 months. So that's why I wanted to run it. So the traditional kind of SWOT analysis looks at your strengths and your weaknesses, your opportunities and your threats across the business. And that's all very well, and they're the questions I'll be basing it around. But really for me, it's getting that picture and identifying that, but also just taking it to the next level, because there's no point in understanding all of that if we leave it there then and we don't do anything with it. So so I want to convert the SWOT analysis into kind of a register of opportunities, and then on the third day we look at an actual action item on those opportunities. So the first thing I want to do, if it's all right with everybody, is just to get us settled into this space, because any of this work that we do, if we don't give it the space that it deserves, then we're only half doing it and we only get half the value. So the first thing I'd like to do is just take a deep breath in, and on the out breath, just surrender. On the next deep breath in, on this one, I want you to release all of other people's energy. So all and any of other people's energy, situations, places, or events. And the final breath in, this one, I want you to call back your own energy from people, places, situations, events, all back through divine light, divine filter of love, light, wisdom, and truth. So we're calling back in our own energy to give us that power. And then just as we settle into it, I just want you, for yourself, and all of this is just for yourself, just to acknowledge to yourself who you're here for. So it might be an obvious question for someone. You might say, I'm here for my business and my answers will all be around my business, and that's fine. It might be for yourself. It might be if you're coming from a place of, I'm in full or part-time employment and I'm going to make the leap. Because oftentimes when we answer these questions, if we're not consciously aware of from what place we're answering the questions, then we're answering it from all these different areas. And if I said something to you like, what's your cash flow like? One part of you is saying, yeah, I have enough money to pay the mortgage. And the other place is saying, it's only a hobby and I'm not making money. So I want you to just make that conscious decision for yourself to say who and on whose behalf are you answering these questions, so that it gives a little bit of clarity as we go. So that's all of that. So as we progress through this, I'm just going to ask a series of questions, and if you open up your workbook, or indeed if you just have a blank piece of paper and you carry out your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and you just start to, as I ask the questions, write down in each section what comes up for you. So if I ask a question and for you it's a strength, then put it down there. For you, if it's a weakness or a threat to your business, put it in that section. Try and keep your points to bullet points. There's a lot of questions I'll go through, but it'll be there for you to expand on later. So whatever note you make sure it's enough. It offers enough relevance for you to go back to it later. And also on this, try and acknowledge the strengths that are really there. Not like, oh, sure, everyone can do that, or that's so normal, or that's just really try and acknowledge what is a strength for you in your business and get that down on paper. And equally on the other side, if something comes up, try not to be dismissive of it. Oh, that's nothing to do with me. That wouldn't apply to me. That's not for my business. Try and actually sit with it for a little bit, because sometimes what comes up for you in terms of answering the question is really, really useful information. You might see a pattern start to develop, and oftentimes the stuff that, that would be no good for me now, it's a, you know, that's the piece that really needs addressing, because that's the thing you're shying away from. So by getting it down on paper, it might be something that you yourself won't do, but by acknowledging and recognizing it's something that you need to do to take your business to the next level, you might be able to take an action out of that to go and find support, or go and find a cost-effective way to deliver that component of it. So try and find a place for everything. So just check in there, and the chat box is there if there's any comments or questions you want to include in. So I'm going to start going through the questions and kind of expand on some of them just for thoughts, and more of them they'll be fairly straightforward. But just as I say, let it sit with you. If you are watching this in the replay, or indeed for those of you live, if you're watching it again, you may want to press pause at different sections, because sometimes when you're in the flow of it, you can get more down on the topic and then move on to the next question or the next type. So I suppose the biggest question over the last 12 months is the impact of COVID-19 on your business. So I suppose I'll start with that and just say, what impact did it have on your business? What impact did it have on your health and your well-being, and in turn on your business? So for some people, it had financial implications and cash flow. For some people, it was an opportunity to try another way. So some people went fully online, some people went 50-50 online. So what were the impacts of that on your business? And the follow on from that is, where is that at now? So for example, if you're a retail space and you moved to an online presence, the time in terms of resource to deliver that, was significant, but your shop front was closed, so you had the space to do it. But if we come back now to an open retail space, are you going to go 50-50? Are you going to give resources to keep that product uploaded, everything current, process orders, manage customer service? Are you going to go 50-50? Are you ever going to open the retail front again? Are you going to leave the online behind? So where does all of that sit with you? And I suppose when we get on later on to talking about resourcing and, whether it be people or money, that there's implications of the type of service you want to offer. So what your products and services are around that. So do you have a strong customer base right now? Is your customer base pretty much focused on one or two large clients, or do you have a good cross section? Do you understand and know your ideal client? And this one is a funny one because it can be quite product or service specific. So you might have a number of ideal clients, but for a different type of product or service. So it's very important that you give each of those ideal clients, or your avatar, that space to see what is my ideal client, because you want to invite more of those in. And sometimes as an SME or in that space, or if you're moving particularly from full-time employment to part-time, or trying to increase a business where you're going to go it alone, you could be inclined to go after opportunities left, right and center. But really the understanding of your ideal client, not only will it create space for them, but it's putting it out there to invite the right client to you. And when you go through time in terms of looking at and writing down what your ideal client is, you cannot be too specific. So everything from gender, age profile, ability to spend, how much or how little, what product, what service, what do they want, what's their greatest pain, what's the transformation. You need to be so specific on that stuff when you're writing down your ideal client. And you might be able to do that relatively easily for a product or a service that you have for a long time, but you might need to look at that when you think of a new idea or a new way of packaging your products, to think, who is this aimed at? Because until you understand who you're trying to talk to, it's very difficult to produce your communication and work off your communication plan without that in mind. And it's amazing when you do put time and effort into describing that ideal client, it really does open up and invite that client to you. And it also gives you the confidence when you know that the client that is coming looking for you may not be the right client for you. It gives you that confidence to say, well, I can't do that, but I can offer you this. Or I can't do this, but perhaps this would suit. It also helps to try and bundle your products and your services together. So instead of this one-to-one session that you might offer in terms of a product or a service, you might be able to identify that really for this to work, we'd need 3 sessions or 5 sessions, or I'd need to go back and do this, or I could package this, this, and this into one offering. And it helps you to, I suppose, bundle your offerings and in turn create more profit and more viability of the different products and services. So in terms of the marketing and social media and the customer service side of things, you know, how would you rate your customer service? How would you consider your response times, your customer expectations? Are you visible to your customer base? Are you visible on your terms or on their terms? Do you receive customer complaints, or more specifically, what type of complaints, and how do they sit with you? You know, how do you feed that back into your business? Are your customers recommending you? Word of mouth can be the really most useful way of spreading your word. And then if we get on to talking about the market, you know, is your market saturated? Where are you adding value? What's your unique proposition? What do your customers say you do really well? And how is your business different from your competitors? So if it isn't different, is it just a race to the bottom in terms of price? And if it is different, what's the value? What's the value you bring? What differentiates you from your competitors? Is your business scalable? When you think about your client base, do you operate some or all or part of it at a loss? Do you perhaps facilitate family and friends for free or little cost? What trends might positively or negatively affect your business? So, you know, if we think about the last 12 months, obviously nobody predicted COVID, but the increase in online activity, the increase in, I mean, the figures they give on Zoom in terms of the number of calls that have happened through Zoom in a 12-month period have been phenomenal, you know, like that impact of your business, but also the impact, if you think of COVID on puppy sales and dog sales. Like everybody got a dog at the start of COVID. Everybody was out walking 24/7. Everybody's social media profile is full of outdoor activity, exercise that they're doing, getting out and about. You know, is there an impact there? Will people come back differently? Has it impacted your staff when they come back? Have their expectations changed? In terms of employees, if you have employees, do you value them? Are they under or overpaid? Can go either way. Could you afford them more responsibility, or can you delegate some of the tasks down along the chain to take some of the pressure off a business owner? Or are you understaffed? So when we think about all we try to do, and oftentimes small business owners think they have to do it all themselves, and we oftentimes do, but not only that, and particularly women in business, they tend to have the responsibility for the running of the house, the minding of the kids, all the other extracurricular activities that happen. And it's just where are the resources around that? In terms of boundaries, how do we manage those? Your time, your space, your energy. So just focusing on yourself for a minute and focusing on the strengths that you bring to your business. You know, do we have resilience there, hardworking? Are we patient? Are we dedicated? Do we show up? Are we consistent? Is there one thing you could stop doing right now? Is there one thing you could start doing right now? How would you rate your organizational skills? Can you ask for help and support? Does it come easily to you, or is it a challenge? Do you feel supported in your business by your partner, family, friends? Do you feel supported? Or if you feel a lack of support, where does that sit with you? Or how does that manifest for you? And who is your tribe or your community? Or do you have a space that you can go and vent and look for support and keep you on track? Is your community full of like-minded people that you can rely on for support? I mean, we all have up days and down days, and you know, where do you get that support? It might be from family and friends, it might be from your business community. So just to acknowledge where that comes from. Do you engage in education? Do you invest in yourself? Do you feel fully equipped to run your business? Do you have responsibility or the responsibility of running your business? What impacts your business in terms of other stuff? Is it somebody else's fault? Is it the economy's fault? Is it your customer's fault? Is it your employee's fault? Or can you hand on heart say you grab each opportunity with both arms and give it your best? Do you practice self-care? Is that a strength? Or perhaps an opportunity to change? An opportunity to maybe implement a few more boundaries of your time and energy? So when we link that back into business and we think about customer service, a lot of small business owners feel the need to be accessible 24/7, or to acknowledge an order if it comes in, or a query, or get back with pricing, or, you know, but there are really simple steps to implement to manage that boundary, you know. Automated messages to say we'll be back to you as soon as we can, a little message to say all quotes are given out in business hours, or you know, it's just little ways to make it, you know, nobody really expects. They might become used to it and might have an expectation on what they've always done it, so she'll answer me. But really the choice is yours. It certainly doesn't mean you offer any less of a service to have set boundaries. So in terms of your self-care, you know, just to acknowledge for yourself what you do around that, or perhaps what you don't do. And even, you know, separate to this call or separate to the replay, to just take a separate sheet on that for yourself and acknowledge what you do well and what you don't. And also to think about what you get the most value from. So for some people, and look, there's loads of things that feed into this. You all know yourselves best. For some people, it's to get out and connect with nature, to feel grounded, maybe even take off the shoes and connect with nature, to feel that connection. For some people, it's complete time on their own and in the introverted space, and just allow your energy to recuperate and to build again. For some people, it's to get out and meet a friend, to get out and have the chat, and they get their energy from an external source. So it's very much an individual prescription around that. For some people, they're very process driven, and they can get up in the morning, go for their exercise, or have their morning routine, have maybe their morning meditation, have a nighttime routine at night, maybe finish off with a little meditation, maybe create a to-do list for the following day. So everyone operates differently, but whatever it is for you, just make sure you factor in the space for it. And that, I suppose, in a lot of cases is also linked to the boundaries. Where do you sit with those, and whether they be physical, emotional, spiritual, whatever it might be, but how does that support your self-care? Because really, you can't give from an empty vessel. So you need to keep that topped up to support your clients and support yourself. And it just the whole piece, just the more you can be there and show up and be present in yourself, the more you give to your clients when you're there and you're fully present with them. So it's very important to look after yourself. So is there any questions or anything? You can unmute yourself there if you want to share, or pop some questions in the chat box on that. No? All thinking away. So in terms of where you go next and what you want to do, and thinking about your market space, is there a niche that you're not serving? Or is there a weakness of a competitor that perhaps you could leverage off? If you think about what the size of your audience is, again, it comes back to knowing your ideal client and your avatar. But when you think about the size of your audience, is there an opportunity to increase that, to attract a wider audience? Especially if you have an online presence and you're offering a product or a service online, then really time zones aren't even an issue anymore. The majority of stuff can be delivered at a certain time to suit most places, or at least for your ideal client base. And if not, it can be recorded and shared later. So has that increased your opportunity? Has that broadened out the ability to offer? Or is your target market shrinking? Is your item a luxury item? Will the knock-on effect of COVID and people having expenditure, having money available to spend, is it considered a luxury item? Could that be affected in the next 12 to 18 months? Is there somebody that in your space that isn't currently a competitor but could be in the very near future? Or is it flip that on its head? Is there somebody out there that you could link up with to offer a broader service? So is there something in your business, your product or service, that you feel this is really good, and what would make it even better is if it could be offered as part of this or associated with this? To think about pooling it together. Could you be an affiliate? Have you got any affiliate partners? So if you're promoting their products or service, you're getting a kickback. Is there any part of your product or service that can sell itself in the background? Perhaps a product or service or program that you've delivered that has all the material or the information there that could be packaged a little bit differently. Perhaps sold as self-study. So coming back to the finance side again, what is your financial position? Is there a buffer? Do you understand your costs? Perhaps more than ever, people do understand them now, or have been forced to take a look at them in COVID times. Do you understand your costs at an overall level, but also your costs per product or service, so that you can understand, you know, if you look at your product or service, the costs, the profit, and what it takes to deliver? Can you use that to shape what you're trying to attract, what your targets are for the year? You can use that understanding to take a look at figures mid-quarter, mid-month, and understand what you would need to close out before the month end to hit your profit, to hit your figures in profit. Does the business have any debt? If so, how much? What's the plan? Is it relevant now? Was it money invested in something that didn't really support your business and you're still feeling the pain? Do you document all of your income? Now, I'm not the tax man and I don't care what your figures look like and I don't need any information sharing. But I want to tell you, if you don't document all of your income, you really are putting the message out there that it doesn't all really matter. I worked with a client in the past and they operated some of their business through cash and all of it mightn't have been going towards the tax man. And so they never really acknowledged it. Oh, I don't want that on paper. That runs the house, or that pays, put diesel in the car, or that. They had all these excuses. And I said, okay, that needs to stop now. I don't care about the tax man, but I need you to acknowledge everything that's coming in, because by acknowledging it, you can attract it. By not acknowledging it, you're really saying to the universe, I don't, that's not even there. I don't really mind that. But anyway, when they started to acknowledge it and write it all down, there was about €1,000 a month. Now, if that €1,000 a month hadn't been coming in, it certainly would have had a very big impact on the business and on the home life. So you need to acknowledge everything. And by acknowledging it as well and seeing where that money comes from, stuff you hadn't accounted for, you know, that is a nice little earner ticking along in the background. And maybe we could do more of that, not necessarily that it's in that space, but that product or service offering is there, it's steady. We could package that differently, upsell, deliver more of that. But it's important to acknowledge it all, because we want to attract the right type of client and we want to attract what we're looking for out of this business. What happens if your supply chain changes or it reduces? Can you cope? Are you just really taking on product and flogging it out in one door and out the other door and not really adding value? What would happen if it dried up? Would you be able to service your market? Is there technology or equipment that needs to be updated? And this kind of question around technology and options around how we do things and what we do, we can either get down the rabbit hole of, oh, this is how I do it, and so I always do it. And perhaps we're now in a situation where we're paying for something that we mightn't be getting enough value from. Or you can go the other side and realize that stuff has moved on so much and there's much more cost-effective ways of doing things, of doing what you want to do, and maybe even integrating a couple of things that you do so that it makes the whole process more seamless, your operations more seamless. So reviewing what you use and how you use it, and even to ask the question out there, this is what I want to do, what do you use? And that's where that whole sense of community comes back in. And, you know, who do you bounce those ideas off? If you're afraid of putting yourself out there and being more visible, if that's not an easy thing for you to do, how do you support yourself in that? How do you engage with your customers? Is it enough? Is it too much? Are they bombarded? Do they feel like they don't know who you are? For any of your businesses, if I was to have your name with the wrong spelling, or your business name with the word missing, would I find you? Could I find you? I had a call recently from somebody that says, oh, I've just recommended this guy to come and work with you. His business is this, da, 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 da. So he'd probably be in touch with you, but just to give you the heads up. And I said, that's great, thanks very much. All I had was his name. And I knew what business he operated in. Could not find him. Couldn't find him anywhere. So even if he has a really good customer that said, really good business, loved working with them, this is what they do, and I wanted that product or service, I couldn't have found him. So what is your visibility like? Do you have a presence? Does the presence out there reflect you and your business? And that goes both ways. You know, if you've got a very slick high end, like it needs to reflect your business, because that's what you're drawing into you. If you put out there, you know, a web page that hasn't been updated for 10 years and a number that's out of date and a Yahoo email address that wasn't touched, and you know, and they're trying to get you, they're not going to deal with you. So you need the presence you have out there attracts your type of client. And in the same way, if it's really, really slick and everything is ba 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 ba, and you can't answer the phone to them, or you can't help them and support them when they need it, then, you know, they're not going to work with you then either. So it needs to reflect your business. And keep it real. People want real people. People don't want or need, you know, the hair and makeup done to check in and see how you doing, are you okay, I'm doing this, could it help you, connecting back in. You know, people don't need the holy grail, they just need it to be real. And all you're looking for in terms of your visibility. And I suppose this is where the hard work comes in, because the slog is that you're constantly communicating or putting your message out there and perhaps initially not seeing the return. But really all you want to be is so front and center of your audience that if and when they need your product or service, or their circle needs your product or service, that you're the person that comes to mind. That you're the person that say, oh, I know the very person you should go to for that. And because of that, they'll recommend you on, because of the connection you've made, because of you keeping up that communication piece. So it might seem like a hard slog initially, but remember, there's ways around that. There's ways to do it. And if that's not your forte, or that message isn't your strong point, there's so many low cost and cost effective ways to get that out there. So whether it be using an external, you know, hiring somebody on an hourly rate that's, you know, cost effective and they're just doing what you want to do, or being able to take it far enough yourself so that what you require is quite specific, you can outsource that. Or you know, there's virtual assistants out there that you could farm out that whole section of your business to, and you just say, listen, I want an email to go out with this, this, and this, and they manage all that for you. So there's loads of different ways, but the most important thing is that you have a presence with your customer base, and that they don't forget about you or who you are, so that if it comes and they're looking for something, they can quickly do a search in their inbox, or quickly do a search in their social media feeds, and they find your information and can share it for you from there. So maybe, is this resonating? Is this bringing up stuff for you? Is there any feedback on what you think is coming up around it? Anybody like to share? No? All very quiet? Anyone want to pop in the chat box there? What has been your biggest challenge through COVID as a small business owner? Closure. Well, yeah, Tori, thanks for sharing. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's outside of your control, but I know from having spoken to you in the past, in the background, you've been working on a couple of projects to support the business on the reopening, you know. I also think it's a really good time to take stock of where you're at with staff, how you manage the business, and the cash flow. You know, lots of people have come back saying, you know, they promise when they go back they're going to try and build a reserve so the business could sustain a 6-month closure. You know, to manage the finances around that, manage stocking around that, seasonal stock, where to go with that. You know, there's lots of impacts that people have had in terms of the retail space and how to manage that. So really good questions that I probably would have avoided answering or even asking. Yeah, so that's the kind of thing. And I suppose, again, if you're watching the replay, or even for those of you on live, if you go back and listen again, it is probably a good idea to press pause on some of those, because when stuff comes up and you're in flow, you can really get going and maybe flesh them out a little bit more than you would have. Maureen, recruitment has been your problem. That you can't get people, is it?
Yeah, it's just everybody that we've been trying, that those on COVID payments are very, very comfortable on COVID payments. They don't want to come off it. But I know it's like it's a national issue. I know that our biggest customer, the Brothers of Charity, they're seeing the same thing as well regarding recruitment. Even the bus drivers, their locum panel is thrashed. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Everyone is exhausted. Whoever is comfortable is comfortable. You know, and even regards, I've had gone as far as interview people, and all you hear is, "Oh, it's not worth coming off my COVID payment for." Do you know what I mean? Now, I can understand if I was in that position, then it'd be me as well, but it's just really frustrating. There's an awful lot of time and effort gone into that before you get that remark or that feedback, you know?
Yeah. It is. I've heard a lot of feedback on that, especially people that were part-time workers at the time, and it is more valuable from stay off it. So I suppose they're opening back up, but I know you have also recruited successfully in some of the jobs, and your client base has changed. Obviously, your business being cleaning, the impact of COVID has a positive effect in terms of contracts and stuff for you. And you know, you probably are getting less pushback in terms of the price and the service because they have to invest in it.
Oh, certainly, yeah. It's what I wanted. Do you know what I mean? I had always said this COVID gave me a big heave up that way. I just didn't think that staffing would have been such an issue. You know what I mean? It's like, thankfully, I've been very lucky about who we have now, but it's been torture, absolute torture. You know, I've never had such dealings with so many people, or invested so much in people who never worked an hour. You know what I mean? It's just, and that from that point of view, it's been really, really exhausting. But it's a lesson for me as well. Maybe I need better screening policy, or before I invest energy into getting that far. But it's a learning curve. Every day is a school day.
Absolutely. And Sarah, biggest challenge has been at home all the time. Yeah, it certainly is. And you know, I brought up boundaries a couple of times in there, and I would echo that as well. You know, I would also say, though, things have had a serious improvement since the schools opened back up, and there's some bit more of a structure, you know. But the day flies, and for me, and boundaries in that is when I get stuck into something, it's making sure that there's a lunch break, or making sure that there's food at that time of day, or making sure that you can step out. You know, when we're responsible for so much, everything kind of jumps into one. And I've often, you know, I set an alarm to go off at 5:30 to make sure I leave the desk to get as far as the creche for 20 to 6, and it's often gone off and I've gone straight out. So it is a kind of a, you know, there's no downtime in between the different bits, whereas we probably had that in terms of traveling and distance. You'd sit in for the hour to the office or the hour home, and you got your podcast, or you got a bit of music, or you got that time just to sit in silence. And certainly that has been a big change. But I suppose, and I talked about the self-care needing a SWOT analysis of its own, just to pull that out and see, how am I looking after myself? And if that is really, really poor, then maybe it's about scheduling it. Maybe it's about thinking, you know, partner up with somebody else that's going to hold you accountable. So that can be helpful for some people. If you don't have your walking buddy or whatever, as one of your neighbours, I see lots of different pods have been created around us here, but if you don't have somebody to send you that text, sometimes on those dark days it's harder. But when the sun is shining, and the weekend we've just had, it was great to see so many people out and about. So just to build in that, and really, I suppose, think about what that self-care is for you, because it really is different for everybody, and no excuses needed. You do what's right for you, whether it be alone time or time in nature, or whatever it might be. That's I think it's more about Steve and I are home. Yeah, when you've got two people, a husband and wife, trying to share space and share office space and manage all that. It's very challenging, you know. So hopefully things will change a little bit more around that, or at least if you could break up and see some clients away, or run different things, you know, in a different environment. I think it's just for your headspace, you can come back into it easier. I definitely would say making sure that your environment at home or in your office is as good as it can be to support a kind of a clear mind. You know, if it means bringing greenery into your office, or making sure you have good air circulation, or, you know, making sure whatever works for you, incense, candle, whatever you need to get that space to be creative and to be as present for your client as you can when you're delivering your service. is as much as you can do there. Any questions or anything that's come up that you want to add or share before we finish up? Okay, well, the next step, so we have our call today, which will go out, the recording will go out to anybody. I thought there would actually be more online because I only had maybe 3 or 4 people that said they would be watching the replay, and there's about 20 registered, so I would have expected a few more. But anyway, they'll get all the replay today, and we're back on Wednesday at 2. And on Wednesday, we really need you to have fleshed out those ideas that you put down on paper there in terms of the 4 areas, because we want to look at the opportunities. So I really do want you to come forward and say, look, it's a real, I consider it a real weakness of mine that I'm a technophobe and I don't want to work with technology. And that we could say, okay, let's flip that on its head and think about, if we worked with technology, what would it bring to my business? Really, what opportunities? Would it help with the reach? Would it help with the ease of delivery? Would it help with the efficiency? Would it help? So we try and flip what that weakness into an opportunity as for what it is. So really try and have your paper with you, but try and have invested a little bit of time to take a look at the 4 sections, because it'll be easy for you to identify the opportunities within the strengths and opportunities, but a little bit more challenging. And this is where the value is, in looking at the weaknesses and the threats and how you can change them into opportunities. And then on the final day, on Friday's call, we look at the opportunities you've created, and we come up with a little action item around a couple of those opportunities. You'll be able to do it offline for all of them, but I'll take you through perhaps coming on with an opportunity and seeing what can you do, what can you investigate, support, farm out, cost, whatever it might be, to progress what those opportunities are. And that'll be Friday's call. So that's it for me today. We're on the button of 14:45. So just checking there, there's no other comments or suggestions or queries. If there's anything between now and tomorrow, just pop me an email or through any of the social media channels, and we'll get it covered. Or if there's anything in particular you'd like covered in terms of an opportunity you'd like to look at, drop me an email and make sure I cover it within our slot on Wednesday. So thanks very much for attending. I really appreciate those of you that were able to join me live. And if you're watching the replay, I hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you all on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Thanks, ladies.
Thanks, Maura.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Maura.